Hey, what's up guys, it's Lee Weagle on your Overwatch, back with a new video, and today we're going to be talking about the tanks of Overwatch in the new 222 meta. There's a lot of changes gone through to live that have made the tanks you might want to choose in your game change up a little bit, and it's very complicated, so I want to explain how we got to a place where most of the tanks are viable. The first thing I'm going to do is start with the beam change. This change went through on the PTR, and what Blizzard did was they fixed a bug in which full damage was not dealt by abilities that rapidly gain or lose targets, such as fast tracking with Zarya and Symmetra's primary fire beams. Now, Josh No, who was on Seagull's stream when this all came out, did explain that this was a massive change and would even affect Winston and Moira to some degree. Now, initially, Josh thought that this change would affect most of us peasants more than people like the professionals because their aim was so good, but it's actually starting to look like it's a big difference for most players that want to play a beam character, and the biggest losers seem to be heroes like Genji or Tracer or Mercy flying about, things that are hard to track. Now, over on the competitive subreddit, It's J Yang did about the best job you can do of comparing before and after this change, and it is difficult to test because you've got to have the exact amount of tracking and movement in the test environment, which is difficult to do. But anyone that has tried this so far or seen any of these examples will know that it is just flat out much better. Now, Symmetra already had some buffs, and I would say at the minute is a really strong pick in ranked, especially with how disorganized things are and Sigma's feeding you charge with his barrier. She isn't good if you hard counter it, especially on big open maps like Junkertown, but that would actually require your DPS to swap. But aside from Symmetra, what this does is it has some really good knock-on effects onto the tank meta. Zarya being stronger actually makes Reinhardt stronger, and we've already done a video, by the way, explaining why Rein's buffs are a big difference. I'll put that on screen, but as a quick rundown, the 30% knockback makes a really big difference, and so do some of the slowing effects, which we'll get onto later in this video. Zarya being able to put out a lot more reliable damage makes Zarya and Reinhardt push comps into bunker a lot stronger. Before this patch, Reinhardt got booped by everything or slowed by everything, and it was very hard to actually make a push. But if you've got the right map to utilize it on and the right comp to support Reinhardt pushing forwards, it's actually a fairly reliable way to counter bunker now. One thing that we've mentioned a few times though is that the meta at the moment is very dependent on the map that you're playing. And if you're on a map where Reinhardt can use the geometry and a bit of shield management to get within swinging distance of bunker, well, it's going to be a really good time for you. You'll see in the background that a map like Lijiang Tower Control Center is good for this, but I also want to show a bit of gameplay here on Ilios. We've just been diving into this enemy team and failing, so going Reinhardt and using the stairs to get above the bunker here is something that's really powerful on this point. Bunker doesn't really have anywhere to go, and if you can just forward mouse one into them, they're going to have a really bad time. Bunker just wants to be able to post up and shoot down a lane and back up when it needs to, but in this situation there is nowhere for them to back up to, and this is exactly the kind of place that you're going to want to pick. Reinhardt and Zarya, or Sigma and Zarya as well, is a really good combination for bunker. In case we didn't think all of this was good enough, don't forget about the slow buff that has been released to live as well. Slowing effects, instead of stacking together, friendly and hostile slowing effects are now separate, and movement speed will be determined by whichever is slower, which again is another big buff to Reinhardt. Originally, what would happen, because holding your shield up with Rein slows you down, the stacking effect of something like Symmetra Symmetra's turrets or Mei's freeze were almost instant. In fact, you couldn't even walk forwards before with your shield up. However, now you can, making that progression onto the enemies even stronger, along with the steadfast buff and the fact that Zarya is also just better. This also has an effect on heroes like McCree when he's in high noon, or even Orisa when she's shooting. Anyone that slows themselves down in some kind of way is now buffed against any enemy incoming damage that slows you. What I like here is that this creates a really interesting tank meta if I'm correct. Bunker kind of destroys Dive, but Sigma and Reinhardt kind of destroy Bunker. But what's interesting about that is that Dive can be utilized pretty well against Reinhardt and Sigma. We almost have this tank team comp triangle based on the map that we're going to be playing. Now, I keep bringing it to that point because it's very important. A map like Havana has really long lines of sight, and this is where it's going to be difficult to use Reinhardt even with them buffs, because the Bunker can just out-sustain it and has naturally strong high ground on nearly every point of this map. On first, the enemies have got to push it all the way up to you. Bunker's just better at that on attack and defense a lot of the time. On second point, on defense especially, you can just post up on the high ground with the Bunker. And again, on last, there's huge lines of sight that you've got to be very careful of. And I would say that even now, these lines of sight are so long, even if you manage Reinhardt's shield perfectly with Zarya bubbles, there's not enough cover to hide behind to recharge them abilities like there would be on Lijiang Control Center. I find it really crazy but also interesting that these seemingly small changes made a big difference. The other thing that I like about Reinhardt as well is that even though a lot of ultimates got nerfed, Reinhardt still charges his quite quickly. Even though we do have quite a nice little circle of life here with the tanks, I do need to say that Orisa seems like she could be a little bit weak right now. I've heard a lot of people talking about how the 1 second extra cooldown on her shield makes a much bigger difference than you would think. And you have to remember that the original strength of Bunker was to play it with a Roadhog or a Diva to counter an opposing Bunker, and you would use the Roadhog and Halt combination to hook something into your team for free kills. Well, that is just much more difficult to do when Reinhardt's always on your screen, because if you pull him up, you pull the shield up too. And then you've also got Zarya bubbling things. Being able to pull off Bunker now requires the right geometry, whereas before you could kind of put it anywhere because of how the tank meta was working. Well, now, unless you can pull off them Halt hook combinations perfectly, you could be in for a rough time on a lot of different points. And also, that 1 second cooldown actually making a difference gives you even less survivability, even on the longer points of contact. Do I think Orisa is dead? No. But the thing you've got to be careful of is just trying to pick her everywhere. I'm even seeing it at higher ranks where some people are just trying to pick Orisa Bunker on defense, and the enemy team are walking these new strong and powerful beams of Zarya, bubbling a Sigma who is shelling a Bunker, and it's going really, really badly because Sigma deals out so much damage over the course of a game. He's generally racking in gold damage, and I think people think that they're playing really good on Sigma when they do that, but I think that that's just a part of who he is. He will be shelling and out-damaging your DPS a lot of the time, and again, he's a very good counter to Bunker. Think about it this way too. Orisa players on old patch would have a shield down and throw one up in the air in preparation for the first one to break so that it would be replaced instantly. You would also then by this point nearly have a third shield back. Well, the 3 seconds over them 3 shields makes a really big difference. The first shield could quite easily break now before the second one comes down, or you might really need to panic out that third shield earlier than before. It's a lot easier to attack now, and not only because Rein's better and Sigma really does just destroy Bunker, but also Bunker's not as good as it was anyway, and it further adds to that small changes making a big difference to the overall meta. Now, the last thing that I would like to talk about, again, is Reinhardt, because at the minute you'll be seeing a lot of people think that Reinhardt's not very good, especially at higher levels of play. What's happening is people want to play Sigma or are trying him out, and tank players at their rank want to maintain the rank, so they are currently picking Orisa to go with it, as it's the path of least resistance, I think. But it is a combination that does have some synergy. It's hard to break two shields all the time, and I think it gives everyone a bit of a security blanket. But what it is going to do eventually, when people start realizing how much all of these tiny changes affect heroes like Reinhardt and even dive comp in some situations, it's going to be a really good day for Overwatch. I'm telling you now, I really think that Reinhardt Zarya is super powerful. I've played and gathered loads of footage from the PTR and on live already. I've watched a lot of streamers, and when they do run the Rein Zarya, it's really, really good against Bunker. And Rein's just in a good place. He doesn't need as much help as you expect. His shield is still enough to push onto enemies on the right maps, and his hammer as well is always in range, because not many things can actually boop Rein anymore because of that steadfast ability far enough away where he can't just instantly gain on them and smack them in the face. Orisa always used to have the edge in this matchup because everything booped Rein back, and now almost nothing does. Halt will drag him back, but again, if you halt that Reinhardt back, well, you can't hook it because he's going to have his shield in the air. It's a really good time to be a Rein main, guys, I'm telling you. Get some bubbles from your Zarya, use your body and some geometry to push to your enemies and use that shield at the last minute when you need it, and then pin or smack things in the face. I'm really happy that there seems to be a lot of good tanks in the game, guys. Let us know what your favorite ones are in the comment section down below. Dive is also really good against Sigma and can be used even against Bunker on certain points, because again, that whole hook combination is the only thing keeping that together, and a lot of people seem to struggle to use it. It's a good time to be a tank main, guys, unless you don't want to learn lots of tanks, because at the minute, swapping your heroes is really important based on that map pick. So let us know what you think, guys. Be sure to drop a like, as it does help us out and lets us know you're enjoying the content, and you're going to want to hit that bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. You should have a great day as always. Take care and peace, people.